That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
Alright. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today talking Moon Knight episode 4 is Logan Stumph.
Are we sure this is Logan? It might be Khonshu.
I was going to have an opening like, make sure you take your medicine, Logan. This VHS you brought in is not a very popular film.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
Yeah, so we'll be talking all things of Moon Knight episode 4, which is entitled The Tomb, directed by Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead, written by Alex Meenehan and Peter Cameron and Sabir Pirzada, and it aired April 20th, 2022 on Disney Plus. The synopsis: Marc and Steven must find balance as supernatural threats ahead look to stop them. So Logan, I'm curious on your initial thoughts, because my vibe here is that maybe this one's not your favorite.
Yeah, no, I was mostly confused. I have another complaint too. It was like really dark on my screen. Like it was really hard to see at times.
This was terrible to watch on my phone. I was on my lunch break watching this in my car, so I thought maybe it was just me in the sunlight.
No.
But I was like, I can't see what's going on. I could figure enough out, but yeah. So it was dark. It's. I guess it's good to know it was dark on your screen too, so it's not just a phone issue I had.
Yeah, it was a TV thing. I mean, I was watching it when I got home from school, and there was times where I'm like, "What is happening? I can't see anything that's going on." But then it finally, like honestly, when she started using fireworks and stuff, I was like, "Okay, I can see now." Thank you. But no, yeah, it was. I mean, it was interesting is like that last 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so was my favorite part of the whole series so far, because I was just like, my head was like spinning. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, who's going to be unveiled? Like, what are we going to learn? Like my mind was going in 100 different directions, but you're right. Up until that point, I was very confused. I was like, I'm just very confused. And I was very confused after the show, because you and I recorded yesterday on baseball podcast, and I was like, what was happening?
So you were confused up to the
No. Like, so the first part was kind of boring, because I was like, okay, like, yeah, I get it. Like there now, the only part that was we'll get to it, I guess, but the father part was interesting. But like it was like that was good, but then I was really confused because of what followed. I was like, so like then it just made it even more confusing for me. Like I was like, what did I just watch that for? Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's what people felt about the series. Like if it started to go in this direction, people would be like, well, what were the last like 3 episodes for? So that's kind of where I was like, I wasn't confused about what was happening in that one, except it was really dark and I couldn't see anything.
Yeah, so that was where the confusion comes
Yes, that's where the confusion comes from in the first part. Then the confusion piles itself on, and I was like, okay, now I'm really lost as to who this character is and like, where are we? What are we doing? Now I'm so lost. So maybe you can explain it today.
We will. Yeah, we'll get into it. For anybody that listened to one of my episodes before Moon Knight, I read the first 5 issues of Jeff Lemire's run on Moon Knight, which was started in 2016. And then we did a podcast about it where I kind of broke those down and kind of went over what we read in those, and it opens similarly to how the end of this episode was. So I hope that anybody that listened to that and actually read along with that felt like when they got to that scene, like, oh, I'm so thankful I listened to the show and had read that run, because it really felt like it primed me for what we're getting to this week and then hopefully next week. But let's start off. Let's go back to the beginning of the episode. We kind of pick up where we left off with Steven unconscious and Mark unconscious and Layla trying to wake them up. We get this, fight in the desert. This was hard to see, right? Like this was something that was hard to see on my end anyway. And like you said, until she gets like the flare, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of hard to see what was going on there. But she's going to be able to fend off the attackers, which I assume is Harrow's guys, right? And then she's gonna get Steven out of there. They're gonna talk a bit about it's gonna almost to them finding the location of the tomb, which was again at the end of the last episode when Khonshu rewound the time, in the sky. And then they find out that the maze is inside Ahmed's tomb, and it's in the shape of the Eye of Horus, which is something that Steven has discovered. And I like this about Steven because I think they're giving him a purpose now, right? Like Mark's purpose is to kind of be the brawn. The brains is Steven, and he's the one that knows all the Egyptian stuff. He's going to be able to figure that stuff out from his museum time. And I like that they're now they haven't gotten there fully yet, but they're kind of coexisting to a point of, okay, now the tag, you're it. And I think when we get to the end of the show, that's how it's going to be, right? They're going to be able to, I think we talked about it last time you were on too, just tag each other and say, you're best for this job. You're up. Mark, you're best for this. You're up. And now this time, as it tells, there's no fist of Khonshu. There's no suit that will, save us. So we have to be careful. And, Mark keeps saying, hey, it should be my turn. But Steven knows that this is what he's kind of needed for. And he also just seems to want to spend more time with Layla, right?
Yeah, it's like this part, like when he switches bodies and stuff. I don't know if you ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh, but like it's something about the Egyptian.
I have not.
Like thoughts, because if you know Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like little Yugi has Yami inside of him, so like he's got the little necklace on, and he can switch, and it's always when like things get serious. But they learn at first it's like he's always switching, like in Yugi's like, what's going on, I'm so confused. And then he starts to realize there's actually another person there, and like it's a bigger version of him, it's more intense, and he knows how to duel and stuff. So it ends up being like that. So this is always what it reminded me of, and it's cool because it's more like, all right, and it's like Hulk, I guess. I mean, it's like Bruce and them. It's like, okay, now's a good time to show up, big fella. Like, hello, I'm gonna need your help. But like you said, it was very. Did you get Indiana Jones-ish vibe from this? Like I know that's been but that was huge. Like in the first couple.
Yeah, they said it was kind of like an inspiration for them. Was this, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I think you get it here, and which is great. I like that part of it. I also like just the little moments of he's going to kiss Layla, right? And Mark had warned him before that if you do that, I'm going to hurt you. And then it's like, as soon as Layla goes down into the tomb, Mark punches Steven, right? And he kind of gets that there. He's like, it's funny that like even part of him can control enough to be like, I'm gonna sock you one here because you're touching my woman, and I told you to stay away from her. So just a little fun comedy moment. And then, like I said, he finds out that it's in the shape of the Eye of Horus. So they're trying to figure out which way to go to be able to find the tomb. One of the things that they find on the way there, though, is some of Harrow's men have been killed by undead Egyptian priests. This again, it was very difficult to see what was going on, but Steven notices that the blood is fresh, so definitely means that Harrow had been killed there. And also they keep hearing bullets, and they're like, who would they even be shooting, right? Like it's an empty tomb. Well, now we know they're shooting like this undead mummy type thing that is cutting open. I think the guy that we see here is one of the cops from from what the name is the name of one of the cops. So I'm seeing get killed here, which is, one of the cops that was on Harrow's payroll that led Steven to Arthur. So they're gonna kind of hide, right? They're gonna hide, but Layla is going to defeat. I guess there was two of them, right? It was hard to see.
Yeah, it was hard to see. I was like, I think there's two of them because one kind of like dies off, and then the other one's still chasing them. So
yeah, I think the one in the walls might be different. Like there's this moment where Layla gets grabbed and pulled into the walls, and then kind of released, and then grabbed and pulled back into the wall again. But this is where she's gonna run into Arthur Harrow, right? And part of the thing that she was crawling across has broken off. So Arthur can't go get to her, but his people are going to come and say that there's another way around. But one of the things he's going to drop here on her is that, your dad, well, Marc Spector killed him, kind of like a, oh geez, I was going to say some sort of reveal. I forget what movie or TV show has kind of pulled this before, but like the person that killed your dad is actually your boyfriend, your husband.
Kind of like a Lion King, but not.
Yeah, I was leaning towards the Mufasa Scar thing, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
And her father was an archaeologist, Abdallah El Faole. If I said that right, probably not. So I apologize. But Steve and Mark are going to find the tomb and discover that Amit's last avatar was Alexander the Great. This is the lost tomb of Alexander the Great, which I loved. That
was cool.
This is fun. And he has to reach in to Alexander the Great's throat to find the Ushabti, right? Which is the stone that Amit was turned into, the way that Khonshu is, from inside Alexander's body. And this is just how many times he's like, I'm sorry, Mr. the Great. I'm sorry. I'm so glad it was Steven at this point.
Yes. I don't know. I thought the history aspects of it are cool. Like I like that they can throw in the historical aspects just because it's like, all right, that like the lost tomb of Alexander the Great. It's like, okay, where has that been, and now how long has it been? And then like also you're starting to think like it connects back to Alexander the Great and how he ruled. So it was like, wow, so he was an avatar, and all these gods are running through him, and it was I don't know, it's a cool moment when they can connect through history, just because, like you said, there's parts of, I'm not a big fan of ancient history, but like I think it's cool when pharaohs and gods like that are explained, just because of how much influence that it really had on society then. So I like this part, and like you said, he's kind of like reaching in, and Steven like bumbling in, like, sorry, Mr. Great, I'm so sorry,
and like
reaching.
Oh, gross. Yeah. As you can hear it squishing, and his reaction is like, and then he breaks the jaw. I mean,
there's a lot of body squishing in this episode. It's like the guy was stabbing. I'm like, oh, it's like, ugh. They're shooting at each other, and you can hear like the guts going. I'm like, oh my gosh. So
yeah, pretty rough.
It's gruesome.
If it helps you anymore to know that this is not real and actually all in Steven and Mark's, there you go.
Right.
The end there. But yeah, it was. I thought a lot of really great stuff here with Alexander the Great. I am a huge ancient history fan. Like, that is my favorite era. Is it like ancient times up to like early America stuff, like, colonization,
exploration stuff.
Yeah, exploration stuff. I'm not a fan of World War I, World War II, Civil War, all that kind of stuff. That stuff has been beat into my head so much that I like, learning about ancient Greece. I had a whole class about like ancient Greece I took, and learning about Alexander the Great, and all of his stuff. There was actually a class at my college for all of Alexander the Great, but I think they started offering it like right after I was done, which I was upset about, because I thought that would have been a lot of fun. So yeah, right up my alley. And like you said, very Indiana Jones here. This is where Layla's going to find him, and instead she kind of falls into a pit here of a trope that is very common in these type of things is when something serious is about to happen, right? Which is Harrow's men are going to find a way in there. That she wants to stop and talk about her father while Mark's like, he switches into Mark and he's like, no, we got to go. Like, we have to go. We can deal about this later. And she doesn't really realize that that's the case until they start hearing them approaching closer. So they could have maybe found an easier way before that, but it's understandable. This is a guy who was her husband, who she found out actually, we don't know how they met, but apparently they actually met because he was seeking her out because he felt guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of changes her whole perception on the relationship that she had with Mark, because she, let's say before they met because of what she thought was a twist of fate, right? Or if she had thought, almost like Lily and Marshall's olive theory.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That, oh, well, we like olives. I like olives. You don't like olives. So you can take that. That's meant to be. But we've learned out that Marshall actually does like olives, but he lets Lily have them. Right? So there is this thing that, like, her whole perception of that now has changed. She thought that however they met was like this legit meet cute, relationship thing that maybe it's not now, even though he still definitely had those feelings. And from what we've learned, right, from what Mark says here, is that he tried to stop the person that did kill her father, and he gets shot. In the comics, this is how he becomes Moon Knight. So he's with this, he gets shot as they're doing their thing, and he is kind of very Easter themed here. He's right through Khonshu, making this deal with him of, okay, well, you're going to be my fist, I'm going to make you come back to life, and you're mine now, type of thing. And that's why he does feel like he owes Khonshu this, and why in episode 2 at the end of that, Khonshu's like, your body belongs to me, I'm the one that like saved you, like there's hints to this beforehand. You can kind of put the pieces together here that, okay, so that was all before Moon Knight. He gets shot, now he is risen as the Fist of Khonshu, and now he has to deal with that. But I guess after that he decided he wanted to reach out and meet Layla and atone for something, and then just fell in love maybe.
Yeah, this was weird. I thought he died. I was so confused. Like you said, like if you hadn't read the comics, you're going, I'm so confused as to what is happening. And then I think once he starts to fall backwards and things like start to change and things in around him start flying around, and it's like, okay, so like this is like some kind of alternative like universe that he's created either in his mind, or it's like memories, or it's something going on that's happened before, or like it's a different kind, like he's experienced. But it really did. It was like, wow. And it was so like, he shoots him once and then it's like, oh, okay. And then shoots him again. I'm like, oh my God. And he just like falls back. And I thought he was going into a pool of water. He like hits his head on that thing. I was like, God. But no, this was a good scene. But like you said, like following that trope where it's like, they get into like this argument, right? When of course he's like, well, we got to go. I can't talk about this right now. Like any other movie that ever exists. But that was just it was a cool moment. And Arthur's just got, and we'll get into like, my favorite role for him right now is when he's in the insane asylum or wherever he is. He's kind of like this like manipulative cult leader. So I don't know. This is really, he already is. We've already seen that version of him when he's walking and they're all following him. I'm excited to kind of see where he goes with this because of all the people in there and like what he makes Marc and Steven believe. So.
Right. So that is when, he gets shot by Arthur Harrow, who comes in not long after they had started arguing, and they couldn't get through it at all. So
in the comics, like, is it like as you've read it, is it like it starts with this kind of stuff and then it leads into more of this journey that he takes?
In the original comics, he is. I haven't read issues, right? Like this run that I read was like kind of midway through. So
Okay.
in his original like origin, he is shot in Egypt with archaeologists, and he's a mercenary, right? And that is when he gets blessed by Khonshu and comes back to life. And now what they've done is they substituted because Layla, I don't believe, is in the comics. None of the ones I've read. His love interest is somebody else. But in the comics, the way that it happens is there is a issue there, right? With a tomb and all this kind of stuff. And that's how he gets chosen by Khonshu. So what they've done in the show here is they substituted that one of those archaeologists was Layla's father.
Yeah.
And then when I started reading the Moon Knight run that we covered here, it was a they started off in the asylum. So that's how it started there. But
Gotcha.
and then they kind of do this whole thing, which I'm trying to pull up the issue on my computer, but it's having problems. So I might have to try to pull it up on my phone because I wanted to kind of read what happens in some of this stuff here. But yeah, so he gets shot. He's going to fall into the water. We're going to kind of follow it for a bit. And then the light from that is going to turn into the light of a explorer's flashlight, where then we find out it's this cheesy VHS movie, right? With a character named Stephen Grant. And everybody, if you're watching this, is probably like, oh my goodness, what is this about? Right? Like, Stephen Grant we're watching a movie of him. Like everybody's confused, right? Like I'm sure everybody watching this that hasn't read the comics are like, I don't understand what's going on here. And then we kind of pull back and we start seeing all of these characters we've seen before. We're going to run into who has a bingo card and tells Marty that he had won the bingo. And, we're going to have Mark get wheeled into a room with Harrow, who we find out is like the doctor of this insane asylum or mental hospital. So they've had this before in the comics. What happened here is that they present to Mark that Moon Knight is your fantasy. You've been keeping a journal of his adventures since you were a boy. They are delusions, Mark. They have like this binder of drawings and stuff. They say, you are Mark Spector. You are an orphan. You have dissociative identity disorder. And if you aren't willing to do the work necessary to get better, we are going to have to increase your medication again and move you back into the secure ward. So he says, the doctor is a female. She says, you are going to stop these stories about Egyptian gods and Moon Knight and help me. Says that, she's always been his friend, right? And he's kind of not really buying it, but then he keeps hearing Khonshu, and Khonshu's talking to him. So it'll be interesting on how they do this, because at this point, right, Khonshu is not with him. Khonshu is encased in the stone right now. So we're not really sure how that's going to play into this. And other things we see here are like a coffin, one of the Egyptian coffins, where they're going to open it up, and that's where we find Steven, right? We had Mark, now we see Steven, and now they're actually side by side. And we're going to pass another one of these coffins that are shaking, which we can only assume is probably Jake Lockley, his other personality. the clues for it is, again, the date request, right? In episode 1, which we find out is obviously not Mark since he's married, and obviously not Steven because he doesn't remember. And then last week, when Mark wakes up to his knife in somebody, and he's like, "Steven, what you doing?" Steven says, "That wasn't me." So we obviously know there's a third one. That's what was hinted at here, but they're going to bypass it because something is going to come through the door. And Logan, it is an Egyptian god that is part hippopotamus here that just says hi, right? And a hippopotamus headed figure is how it's described. This is an ancient Egyptian god, from what I could see, named Taweret, right? I don't know if I said that right. It says it's Tawaret. So Taweret. But do you know what they are the goddess of?
Childbirth and fertility.
Yes.
I'm a genius.
Childbirth and fertility. Her name means she who is great, or simply the great one. The deity is typically depicted as a bipedal female hippopotamus with feline attributes and pendulous female human breasts, which I don't think we saw here, the limbs and paws of a lion, and the back and tail of a Nile crocodile. She commonly bears the epithets of Lady of Heaven, Mistress of the Horizon, she who removes water, Mistress of Pure Water, and Lady of the Birth House. So I do find some of those interesting because where was Steve falling and Mark falling when they got shot? In water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So could she have picked him up, swept him away? And right now what we are seeing is in Mark's head of the mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? I doubt Arthur has this fake hospital set up that he has him put in, but the fact that we're seeing both Steven and Mark next to each other, that we're seeing the third personality in the sarcophagus, to me that thinks that this part is in his head, and maybe this is how it's represented in his head of you got, three personalities that you're dealing with.
Yeah, even a fourth. I mean, it has there's a part where he falls on the floor out of his wheelchair and he's got the Moon Knight action figure in his hand.
Yeah.
And, falls to the ground and he's looking at it like, why do I know that? Like, what is that? And why am I chained to this thing? Like, what is going on? And it's like he's floating and coming out of those sedatives and he's like, what is happening? And it was cool to see that moment of like them split and them acting like it's so well done. I'm like, God, dude, you wouldn't be able to tell that, there's not two of them.
He's not there. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know.
What I think is interesting, what you said about the action figure is in this comic run, it is not an action figure, but it is a news broadcast he sees with Moon Knight. And it's making you think like, oh, like Moon Knight's not in here, he's out there, so I can't be Moon Knight type of thing. But I like the way that they did it here, right? You have the TV with Stephen Grant. You have the Moon Knight toy. And guess what? Even the chained up part on his wheelchair is almost a reference, right, to explaining away the stuff in episode 1 when Steven's locking himself to the bed, right? And he falls face forward like that. It's almost the same thing, but it's kind of like explaining to the viewer that if this was a real twist, right? Oh, so he was not actually tied to the bed. He was tied to his wheelchair. All this kind of stuff that's going on. But I think we get the clue at the end here, right? With the Egyptian goddess that this is real. That the Moon Knight stuff we've seen up to now is real, not the hospital. But that, he isn't crazy. So I think a good part of this next episode is going to maybe be about getting out of here and how to kind of revive himself. And then we're going to probably get back to trying to stop Harrow, and we're going to get Moon Knight again. They're going to somehow free Khonshu. next as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and it was cool too. Like he was looking around, like the people that he'd worked, like Steven had worked with at the gift shops or in the same
Yeah.
asylum. Like, and then he starts to look at things on Harrow's desk, and he's like, "Why did these things look so like familiar?" And
Yeah,
these
his
things
desk
are-
is all like Egyptian
yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah.
From like
It's
the
like
museum
artifacts. Yeah, it's like why are
artifacts,
these things like? And then he's
busts
looking
of
at
heads and stuff.
yeah, and he's seeing the way Harrow's like face. Like, it zooms on Harrow's face and the way he's talking, and he's like, "Something's weird." And he takes off running. But yeah, no, this is cool. Jordan, did you know that one of your favorite shows of all time? I think.
Yeah,
That
Lost.
Tara or Rhett or whatever her name is statue exists in that show. I was like, that's a fun fact. That's pretty cool.
Yep, another Disney property.
Yeah, right.
But yes, yeah, I
That's
did
cool.
know that because there's a lot of like childbirth, fertility stuff with the Island of Lost. So yes, they did use this as well, which
Pretty cool.
which was great. But so where do we go from here, Logan? What do you see happening in episode 5, which I've heard is really good from people that have seen it?
So obviously we get Jake at some point in 5. I don't think we wait till 6 to see Jake. So seeing Jake Lockley will be cool. His reuniting with Khonshu, I think, is coming. So I got to feel like that's happening in 5, or like into 5, you're kind of getting to where like he's going back to get Khonshu out of the stone or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be kind of cool to see, where it heads. I'm kind of interested to see what this god's gonna do. Is it gonna be like a Dumbledore and King Cross Station kind of moment where she's talking to him like, "Hey, there's some bad things that have happened to you, and or you both, or whatever's going on, and maybe we get a better understanding of the personalities and what they mean." And I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm really interested because this was like that whole thing at the end. I was like, I'm so confused. Are the Guardians coming in? Like I'm lost. Like it felt very Guardian-esque. It was like, are we in Ragnarok? Like what's happening? Like I'm so lost. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I have no idea what to expect. I have no clue what's going to happen. So that's kind of been like a first for us, at least for me. You might know more things than I do when it does happen, but it's cool watching it as somebody that hasn't really followed Moon Knight, and that's a lot of us who haven't kind of read the comics. I think there's a lot of casual fans that are more into the movies and stuff. So I think kind of seeing this come into canon and use it as a character going forward will be really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes with this.
Layla's story too, like with her dad, I think.
Yes, she'll have to forgive Mark at some point, I think here. And
or
look,
not.
Yeah, that's true. Who does she end up with? Mark or Steven?
Or Jake?
Oh yeah, Jake's the bad boy, right? Yeah. he's
Jake also does talking Yanks and talking baseball, so I'm kind of cool. It'll be kind of cool to see him.
Yeah. Yeah. So this has been a very interesting episode here. I people putting like, oh my god, what did I just watch, right? So I figured it had to be something crazy. I heard a lot of people saying this was the best episode yet, and I think that for the first bit of it, I was like, it's good, but I haven't seen anything that. But it wasn't really until we get to this, the mental hospital that I'm like, okay, I can see why people are saying that now, because this was really cool. But the interesting thing is, this is a lot of people's favorite episode and doesn't even have Moon Knight in it.
True.
Just an action figure.
That's true. I told you it's the best 10. Like the last 10 to 15 minutes is the best 10 to 15 minutes in this whole show. Like it was so good.
Yeah, you're like, I love feeling confused. What I'm saying? Like when you're watching a show, you're like, I don't know what's going on. I just watched, for people that don't know, I just watched I just binged over 2 days Severance on Apple TV Plus, and that is a show where you have no idea what's going on for a good chunk of it, and I loved it every minute of it. I was like, oh my goodness, this feels like peak Lost days for me. So, it was a good experience too. But yeah, watching the last 10 minutes of this, you're like, oh, I loved it because I already knew that, I'd seen it in the comics. I was like, oh, so they are going there. They are going with because when I was reading those building up to it, I was like, maybe I didn't pick a good arc, because I doubt this mental hospital stuff is going to play into what we're seeing on the TV show. But than it did. So I felt like, oh, I actually picked out a really good, really good arc. What your thoughts on this before we go? Because I got thoughts from Jack on this last time he was on. But a lot of people, were making the comments on Twitter and I'm sure TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff that, like, poor MCU civilians. First, you have all this stuff go on. Then you have an Egyptian god turn the sky back in time. And my thought on it is, and I said this last week, is that there was, this probably is not even ranked on their radar at this point. They saw it happen in the sky, but then nothing actually happened. And they're probably like, good, right? Like, I don't know which superhero that deals with right now, but I can't worry about that. I got to get to work. Because when you look at, to me, I don't think of it as a big deal, because what we've had is, right, we've had an alien invasion in New York multiple times. We had a floating city in Sokovia. We had Thanos wiping out half of the Earth, and then 5 years later, them reappearing back. I think the sky and the stars just moving for like maybe 5 minutes max is not enough to really make people be like, I hate my life. Because I feel like at that point, they're used to that. They look up and they're like, oh, geez, yeah, what's up with this now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like I feel like civilians in the MCU are going, okay, all right, let's just get this one over with quicker, and let's not wipe out half the population. All right, like that's just not cool.
Yeah, my thought is when nothing happens from it, right? They're like, okay, I can push that one out of my head now.
It's like Aurora Borealis. It's like,
yes.
That was kind of cool. Like, that's cool. I like that. That's awesome. Maybe we won't ever see that happen again. So, I don't know. Yeah. This one is far from what I think the rest of them have done. So, I don't know. I mean, they've seen, Doctor Strange and stuff, like doing like casting spells in the middle of New York City. I'm not sure that this is going to phase them, and like floating cloaks and stuff. Like, no.
Yeah, I think they look up and say that's pretty, but like you said, I hope half the world doesn't disappear, and then when it doesn't, they're like, all right, yeah, that's fine then, right? Like, I don't know what that was, but I'm sure somebody dealt with that, and we're done with that now.
Yep, that's pretty funny. I like that.
Yeah, because I just saw so many people saying stuff about it, like poor MCU civilians. Like, they would think. I think if I saw that happen, I'd be like, "That's really cool." Like it would be cool, right? I'd be worried something bad is happening, but like I said, once something didn't happen, I'd be like, "Oh, that was pretty cool." Did you guys see that last night?
Yeah,
the sky rewinding.
Right.
They don't even know it's rewinding. They just think it's doing something.
Right. I don't know. You could explain it in some natural,
They have
supernatural way.
Coons. They have a talking tree, right? They know all of these things.
Get some dude with a giant hammer. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, they know that they're not in the universe anymore, so they're like, oh, just don't be another invasion. We'll be fine.
Sky's not opening. Okay, we're all good. We're good.
Any last thoughts on this episode? I feel like it was a lot to talk about. We did it seemingly under 40 minutes, so I'm worried any thoughts on that?
I think I think this is the most dynamic character we've gotten in a really long time. I'm trying to think of, like, Jordan, who in your mind would be as dynamic as Moon Knight? Like, I'm trying to think of a character, because I think he's got multiple levels and layers. Like, I'm trying to think of who would be the closest thing to him in the MCU that we've got. Maybe Strange?
Maybe. I mean, because what we got with Moon Knight, right, is that it can be Indiana Jones, it can be supernatural, Mummy, with the stuff, it can be supernatural, it can be
mental illness,
religious themes, it could be mental illness themes, right? Like, there's different things here that this is very versatile, and they have all of the ground that I think that's good for the writing, right? Like, if you have somebody that's not locked down into one thing, you can say, we can do whatever we want with this. We can go supernatural with it. We can still have this, I know some people are worried that this is going to end up being, it never really happened. That's not possible. It's not possible, because Moon Knight is going to be in movies. He's going to be in other shows. this stuff is happening, because if Mark Spector is crazy, that means Moon Knight doesn't exist, which means we won't be able to see him in other things. So I don't buy into that, right? And I hope other people don't buy into that too, because I think that they tried to make it clear at the end with the Egyptian goddess, but people might think he's even going even more crazy with it. So I don't know. I think obviously this stuff is all happening. The whole last 3 episodes would mean nothing. 3.5 episodes would mean nothing at all if this was all in his head. And I think if that was ever something that was actually written, Kevin Feige would be like, all right, I don't think we can have that, right? Yeah. Because what's the number one rule when you go into like creative writing classes and stuff? Like, it can't just be somebody's dream. It can't just be in somebody's head. And I trust them to not do that. Plus, there's stuff in trailers that show Moon Knight in action from other episodes that we haven't seen. So, clips that we haven't seen yet.
I think it's interesting too. Like, I think with what we've gotten with the Guardians, with Thor, with Multiverse of Madness, I think you're starting to kind of see, I think, where they're going with. Like, I think Strange sees problems where people have been screwing with like the timeline and like different timelines, and like what Loki had done, what Wanda has done, what now Moon Knight's done, like, and Arthur has done. Like, I think all these things, like all these timelines are getting screwed with in the universe. And I think that's got a lot to do with it. And then Spider-Man, No Way Home, like that, Peter Parker and them screwed with it. So it's like something's off now, right? It feels like it's all off balance. And I think we're getting into like this collision of like the Eternals. Like, we're getting into this moment of like you said, Jordan, it's not like dream. It's more of like, these are existing in other realities. And I think they're all going to come colliding together at once. Like, I think that's kind of what we're headed for, right? Like, I think we're coming for this collision of all these timelines have now kind of just gotten so messed up and wonky. They've just collided with each other. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens, just because, you got so many things happening right now where you're like, man, I mean, I think you're going to have Ultra Universe with Black Panther. Like, I think that's going to be a big thing. And Guardians are out in space, but I think their timelines are going to get all messed up. There's a new Gamora, like, and because of the snap, like, that's also screwed stuff up. So this Thanos thing had a long-lasting effect. I don't think a lot of them saw, except for Strange. So I think that's
it's got an effect. I think it'll forever have an effect.
Mm-hmm. And I hope that's what we get with Multitude, like, or Multiverse, like multitude, man. I'm gonna call it that. Let's get a shirt.
Multitude. The multitude of madness.
He's got multitude, man. He's got multitude. No, but I don't know. It's cool. Did you react to that one yet? Have you done that one yet on this show?
Did
Thor?
You do
the trailer? No. Yeah, Thor's.
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah. But you did do multitude, or
I did do multitude of madness.
That's gonna get stuck in my head now. These people are like turning it off, like, he doesn't say anything about this.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. This is Logan right now.
It's over. We are screwed.
That's the way they feel about the universe. We are screwed. Strange is going, there's way. Well, so like, and seriously, like, if you think about the way that he was acting in Spider-Man Went Away Home, like, you can tell that, like, when the things start to open and like, you can tell like timelines are being created and everything else like that. And there's, multiple people coming from different timelines. You can tell that he's kind of going, oh crap. And then in the trailer, when he goes to find Wanda, I think that's what he's like, there's some crazy crap going on right now and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, is because they had to change all of that, right? Like, originally that movie was supposed to come out before Spider-Man, so this was originally going to have some sort of effect on Spider-Man, and now they had to reverse it almost. Like,
now it had Spider-Man had the effect on him.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I've heard Wanda is a huge part of that movie. By the way, that movie is only like 2 weeks away, so.
I love Wanda, so
we'll be seeing that soon. 2 weeks. But yes, I do have to do a Thor reaction at some point here. It's a very short trailer, so there's not too much to actually discuss on it. But
what is Loki doing then?
Loki is not going to appear in
any
today's
of this
movies. I
stuff.
don't think. Yeah, I think the next time we get will probably be Loki season 2, which actually the directors who directed episodes 2 and 4 are directing season 2 of Loki. So that's something of Moon Knight. The ones that directed Moon Knight's episode 2
that'll
and
be
4
good.
are directing Loki.
Oh wow, those are good episodes too.
Yeah,
Huh.
so I think that's bodes pretty well for Loki season 2.
It's all coming together again. It's wonderful.
I think they start filming soon too. But yeah, so let us know your theories on all of this. But I think that wraps us up here. I think we're both in agreement that we'll, get back to the main plot of this sometime, probably by mid-episode next week, and then we'll kind of have an episode and a half to deal with stopping Arthur Harrow and getting Khonshu back and wrapping everything up. If you want to send us an email, you can contact us at marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com. Or you can Twitter at TO Infinity Saga, Facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond. Yeah, that about it. Logan, maybe see you for the finale.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Hey, you should have Jack and I on. We'll do it together.
Oh yeah, we should try to
That'd be kinda cool.
schedule that out. Yeah, that'd be fun. A full panel for the finale. I'll see if I can get that scheduled. But yes, definitely that would be top of the list. But I want to thank Logan for coming on and sharing his thoughts on Multitude of Madness, and we'll catch you next time.
They can't see us, so.